Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I wanted to talk about 5 ways that I think Indian motorcycles can finally outpace Harley Davidson in terms of sales of motorcycles. The impetus for this video is just that Harley has been in the news quite a bit lately. I'm not going to go there, don't worry. But it really got me thinking because I had a lot of comments about people saying I'm ditching Harley, I'm going to Indian. But I do think that there are some ways that Indian motorcycles can finally beat out Harley Davidson in terms of just pure sales of motorcycles. I'm not talking about how Indian can make a better motorcycle than Harley Davidson. I actually think that they're closer than most people give them credit for. You know, there's probably some things about Indian that I like over Harley and vice versa, but we aren't just purely talking about sales of Indian motorcycles over Harley Davidson. Because right now, as far as I can tell from the research that I've done, Harley Davidson outsells Indian motorcycles. I read from somewhere that Harley sells about 100 or ships about 100,000 motorcycles per year versus Indian, who does about 40,000. So that's a big difference. I do think there is a path forward for Indian motorcycles, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Let's get into the first reason. Anytime I do a Harley versus a Indian motorcycle video, comparison video, everyone will always say something to the lines of like, hey, I would love to consider Indian motorcycles, but the dealership network is a killer for me. Meaning, compared to Harley Davidson, Indian motorcycle dealership presence is not anywhere near the level or in terms of just general numbers of Harley Davidson dealerships. Harley does have a lot more presence in terms of dealership network in the US over Indian motorcycles, and where that gets to be kind of important or relevant is, you know, when people are doing long trips, they just want to know that there's going to be a Harley Davidson dealership close by that they can get to in case there's an emergency, in case they need help. And listen, let's get all the jokes out of Harley's breaking down out of the way. There are some things that happen on the road. Let's just be real. So that is going to be really important for potential buyers, for cruisers who are thinking about doing long distance riding. You know, they want to know that there's a dealership network close by that they can get to in case of emergencies on their road trips. Now that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is just in terms of convenience factor. If you're looking to demo an Indian motorcycle, at least in my case, I have to drive about like an hour, hour and a half out of my way to test ride one. Compared to Harley Davidson dealerships near me, within about 30 minutes, I can get to about 2 or 3 of them. So that is a big difference, not just in terms of convenience of testing out motorcycles, looking at the new stuff that's coming in, but in terms of also just service if I need it. Harley Davidson is just going to be that much more convenient. And I'll be honest, you know, that does play a factor into my purchasing decisions. And there will be times where I just need the help of the dealer. So there's really no good way about it, but Harley does have a lot more dealership presence. So if I was to play the role of the Indian CEO, I would make a huge investment into just making sure there's a lot more presence of Indian dealerships across the United States, because it is the most common complaint that I hear about Indian motorcycles, that the dealership network is lacking. If there's just a lot more presence, I think Indian could definitely go more toe-to-toe with Harley in terms of sales. The next point that I want to make is something that I think Indian is already doing really well, which is to continue to make investments into the entry-level models. And what I mean by that is a motorcycle that is priced relatively friendly, you know, close to about 10K or so, 10 to 11K, and still has good numbers in terms of performance, good features. Like, I think Indian is doing a really good job. I really like what they've done with the Scout line. You know, it's a great way for new riders and beginner riders to kind of dip their toes into the Indian motorcycle lineup and eventually kind of grow with the brand. Whereas Harley Davidson, I've been a little bit more confused about their strategy, nixing the Sportster lineup and bringing in the Nightsters, which was about like 13 to 14K. They've just recently dropped the price, but that's besides the point. It didn't feel like to me that Harley was really taking care of the new riders, which was a part of the previous regime's focus, right? Bringing new riders, younger riders. That is something that's going to, I think, edge Indian motorcycles over Harley Davidson in the long run in terms of pure sales of motorcycles. Because let's face it, the Scout is one of the most popular bikes that Indian makes. They do a really good job. It is a fantastic machine. I want them to keep investing into the Scout lineup, maybe potentially making a cheaper model, maybe a little bit lower output in terms of power, but that's okay. As long as you can get the price there in terms of like what will bring in new riders. So that's my point number two, investing into products or motorcycles that will get new riders into the brand. That I think is going to help Indian in the long run. The third point is something that I think Indian is doing really well still, but I want them to keep the foot on the gas and not get too complacent, but just continue to innovate. You know, I really love the fact that they're adding tech features into the Scout lineup with with the ride command, the navigation. I think those are some great things. I'm just going to be real. In my point of view, I think pound for pound offers a lot more value than Harley Davidson. If you keep innovating, I think you'll slowly start to win over more people, current Harley riders or just brand new riders into the brand. Fourth point that I want to make is just around like reliability. And granted, I want to wade into this topic kind of carefully because I don't have a lot of the data, but this is just more about hearsay. When I talk to my friends and when I talk to people about like, oh, what do you think about Indian motorcycles? What do you think about the Challenger? I'll always hear like, I'm kind of worried about the reliability of Indian motorcycles, particularly X model or this model. I've heard that there's a lot of electrical gremlins here. I hear that enough where I'm like, it does make me feel a little bit unsettled about, eventually if I ever go into a Challenger or something else, like, am I going to experience those problems? Now, I'm not saying that Harley's perfect by any means whatsoever, but I'm just saying, let's clean up that reputation a little bit more. Let's be a little bit more focused about, quality control. I think every brand can do better. I guess what I'm saying is if you can clearly make a name for yourself in terms of quality product, in terms of reliability over Harley Davidson, I think you're going to start to win a lot more customers over, man. I really do. My fifth point, and I think this is probably the biggest one. I think we all know where I'm going with this, but it is about that aftermarket support, man. I don't know what Indian needs to do to increase their aftermarket support. And maybe it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg because the more products they sell, the more aftermarket support will be there. But I hear this almost all the time where like people have thought about getting an Indian or they have already, purchased an Indian and they kind of walk it back saying, I'm going to go back to Harley because I want to mod out my bike, but I just couldn't find a lot of parts for my Indian motorcycle. I think I was on Get Lowered Cycles and I was just looking for some parts for my Lowrider S. And man, that is like 30 to 40 pages deep of just parts. I just kept on scrolling page after page. It is endless. Whereas Indian motorcycle, you'd be hard pressed to find one specific page for all of their bikes. And it's not a big secret either. Whatever Indian motorcycles can do to amp up their product, to amp up their aftermarket support, I think it's going to help a lot. We all like to tinker on our bikes. We like to change up our exhaust. We like to get accessories. We like to modify our bikes. We like to kind of make it our own. And so the more aftermarket support there is for Indian motorcycles, the more successful this brand will be. So I don't know, if I'm the CEO of Indian Motorcycles, I'm looking at brand partnerships. I'm looking at any way to incentivize aftermarket dealers to create more aftermarket products for the motorcycle, for the brand. A lot of these are things that are obviously easier said than done, which is why I am not a CEO of Indian Motorcycles. But if I was, that would sort of be my version of the Hardwire program for Indian Motorcycles. But that's what I think. Those are just 5 things that I thought of as I was doing some research on this topic. Let me know what you guys think. I do think time is another part of the element here. I think Indian Motorcycles is doing fine. They just need to keep on their trajectory. Just keep banging out great motorcycles. Keep banging out great products. Eventually, I think that dealership networks will grow. The aftermarket support will grow, and all of these things will start to snowball. But let me know what you guys think. That's going to be my video for today. Thanks for joining me today. And until next time, I'll see you later. Peace.